Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. Today we're looking at a 10v10 Wanzen Harbor. And, well, Wanzen Harbor is generally infantry grinding. You just put infantry to the front line, see how long they last, cycle them out if you can. Make sure they get logistics close so they can heal up, get some more armaments, and put them back into the fight. If there's any infantry left to fight. And if it is up to the guys on Red 4, then there won't be any. Because they're going to be doing some pre-emptive B5 strikes. Now, it is not just going to be 1 or 2 B5s. There will be more. It's going to be pretty impressive. Blufor, of course, starting with a couple of French units, British units, generally quite a lot of wheeled vehicles so they can quickly get into the town. And make sure that these guys have, well, should have fairly high ranks, which some of these guys don't. FE 432s at rookie, so I'm thinking that these might very well be just, well, militia. So we got Blufor moving out. Generally a couple of guys going towards Delta. Here's the large column, and we have a lot of vehicles close by. We have 3 guys in a row. STRV, the recon vehicle from the French, and a VAB, and a lot of Humvees going towards the town. What does Red 4 have going towards the town? A couple of infantry transports, a BMPT, a T-72BU, which is interesting, so it might not actually go towards the town. They have a couple of Pram-S to make sure the enemy is not going to get anywhere without getting panicked. And it's not just these 2, it's actually 10 of these guys. And 2 Uragan. These things fire high explosive ammunition, and that is going to land on top of the infantry. Some more infantry columns going here, Scott 2s, and a bunch of transports. That's it for the ground assets. And this is it for the air assets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 B5s. Escorted by 2 Su-7B Seed aircraft, and in the back we have a couple of MiG-29 913s on air patrol. When I first saw this strike, I was wondering whether I was watching Wargame Red Dragon or ICBM. Because the amount of devastation that these things can deliver is incredible. In case you haven't seen the B5 before, it is a bomb of 3,000 kilogram with 30 HE. It's not quite enough to wipe out every unit in the game, but definitely a lot of them. And very, very easy to wipe out a bunch of transports. Now we have bombs falling pretty much everywhere. We have 1 or 2 preemptive strikes dropping here. You got 2 Winchestering B5s here. You got 1 going here, here, and I believe they also have a couple going towards the other flank. So what happens is this. That's the entirety of the column that I just covered. Everything is gone. All of the stuff is eliminated. And there is more coming in, and that's the Uragans. They're also producing a lot of HE damage, currently making sure that the 113s cannot make it into town. This immediately puts Red 4 at 705 points, versus getting a couple of units killed at 115 points. So what does Blufor still have left to go into town? Nothing. They just have nothing. There's 1 transport that survived with riflemen. 1 FE 432, which is very much shaken. A couple of STRV 103Bs, which have probably wondered what the hell just hit them. And probably a lot of the B5s actually made it out. Because the B5s are tough aircraft. They have about, was it 15 points of strength? You usually need several fighters to take those things down. And the beauty of it is, fix them up and do it again. So beware when the enemy comes in with 6 B5s, because it is devastating. Now, the rest of the town should be pretty easy pickings for Red 4. Commandosi and Formosa taking the front line. We've got a couple of Bretska Pes, Granatomet. There seems to be some struggle over here on the right flank, where a lot of the infantry has survived. And now we know what all those rookie guys were. They're territorials. And all of these are moving towards the forest. Not that it's going to be particularly safe in said forest, because there is a B5 on the way. You can already hear a couple, see a couple of the guys starting to evacuate from the Blufor team. One was from red, one was from blue. Another B5 is coming in and dropping on top of the town. No, actually not on top of the town. It's dropping on the assumed position of the command unit. Not quite killing the Bradley, but definitely killing the Stingers. And there's 2 more B5s coming in. And those are doing a good number on that town. The HQ section is running away just in time. 1 guy was able to survive. So blue holds on to the sector for now, but that will not go on for much longer. Now the red 4 tanks fortunately are in still a fairly good position to deal with the infantry, especially with the Navy SEALs. That shouldn't be a problem. The Delta Force might pose a bit more of a risk, especially if they can sideshot the T-80 UK. But they're pretty deep inside the forest, so the first thing is probably going to make contact. Yep, here we go. The OT tab. I think the BRM-1K might have spotted them and got killed off by Delta. Or, no, the Rangers potentially. At any rate, there is a bit more of the North Korean Air Force operational here. A B5 tosses another one of those 3,000 kilogram bombs on top of the Bradley. Is it going to survive this time? No, not really. This time around they actually got it. Now the question can be asked, what do you do against this? What do you do against a bunch of B5s? Ideally you shoot them down, but you need quite a bit of investment in anti-air or fighters to make that happen. Because as I mentioned, these things have 15 strength, they don't have any armor, but most air-to-air missiles simply don't do enough damage. Surface-to-air missiles, not so much those. Let's see, do we have any... Here's a Tomcat patrolling. These things do 8 damage with the Phoenix. The Phoenix is not very accurate, 40%, and of course that does get a bit of a reward depending on how much veterancy you have on this unit. Still, you're gonna have to hit the B5 with at least 2 missiles. Now, they're huge targets, they don't have any ECM, but it's still not too easy to catch one of those before they're able to drop off the bombs on a map this size. Larger maps, they're usually pretty useless. Because especially in larger 10v10s, you can see them coming, you can actually intercept them way before they do any kind of damage. And at the moment, there really is not that much warning that Blufor gets. So another 2 B5s and an F5B are going to move into the town. Yep, there we go. Any infantry group that gets detected immediately gets a 3,000 kilogram gift from the North Koreans. And it's starting to get a bit predictable what happens when those things hit. Yeah, the Terror surrenders. If even the Terror has surrendered to the B5, then you did a good job. A lot more infantry have just been killed off here. Blufor 695, red for 1720. As a sort of last-ditch effort, they're putting the town on fire with their Monitor Zippos. It's a bit annoying. These things have a fair amount of napalm ready, so they can keep doing this. They're not that great, though, against any other ground-based units. 40 strength, 2 frontal armor, 2 side, 2 back, 0 top. Ideally, you take out one of these things with a tank. But I personally wouldn't be surprised to see if we're going to see these things get taken out by a B5. Or rather, I would like to see somebody try. Blufor did bring in a Deagle, and also brought in a couple of Legionnaires with LCMs. These were the LCMs that we saw heading this way. Red 4 in the meanwhile is trying to do the same thing, but unfortunately for red, blue just spawned a Lafayette. The Lafayette, aside from intercepting these things, I don't think is going to be terribly useful. Because overall, the Lafayette does not really reach too far inland because of all the buildings that are in the harbor or near the harbor district. You can see the Zippos, once again, putting more buildings on fire, but it's really not that intimidating to the Commandosi. They can just fall back. They even have a command infantry inside this sector. It's the only unit that's currently inside the sector from Red 4, but it does make sure that they don't get any kind of income from this. It's not a conquest match, by the way, in case that wasn't obvious. We are looking at a sheer destruction match. And destruction it definitely is, so far. Blufor is more or less holding on to this sector with 2 command infantry squads, 2 TACOMs, or 1 TACOM, an HQ section. And red does not really have that much that they can send to push. Although one group of Bredskapes could probably push out all of these guys. There are still some infantry vehicles in the woods. These must have been the things that brought in the Rangers and the Seals. But they're not going to be that much of a threat, especially if the Bredska are able to get into the buildings. Now, this skirmish over here could be a problem for Red 4. This is something that a B5 can pretty quickly solve if they know where the target is. That remains to be seen. Red 4 currently is responding with a couple of Mi-8Ts. And, oh, Blufor's reinforcing the sector. I was wondering what the stalwarts were going to do, but they were probably going to be sent there just before somebody actually managed to nuke the whole town here. And that means that the HQ section is really the only benefactory to the quad stack of stalwarts over here. And Blufor has... no, Red 4 is now aware that Blufor has 2 CVs over here. The question is, when is the next B5 strike going to come in? And it is coming in, but not there. It looks like they might be taking aim at the other town. Or the HQ section here. Oh, these poor guys. Yep, that's the HQ section gone. And still one command infantry group from Red holding down the sector. Moderate Zippos took a bit of damage. Still operational, but only just. This thing just needs one more hit and it's going to be out of the fight. I have to say, Blufor's hope really is to take over this sector, because that does give you a ground-based spawn point. And with that, they might be able to put some pressure onto Red 4's main spawn. And with that, take out the possibility to spawn the B5s in. Right now, we have the command infantry from Valhalla in contact with the Legionnaires. There's just not that many of them. There's just 15 versus currently 13 VDV. VAP 2013 tries to assist, but can't quite get the shot on the VDV. That's unfortunate for the Legionnaire. Well, for the... well, actually. Is he still going to get a shot on the second one? VDV are still moving to the position where they want to be in that building. So they once again get into contact with the Legionnaires. And the VDV were able to take out the 2013 anyway. Blufor is not the only one who tries to spawn in stuff here. Red 4 can still do it. So they spawn in a Chung, which is a vehicle that I very rarely, if ever, use. These things have a rocket launcher, firing 122mm rockets. They come with a D70, which has a pretty piss-poor rate of fire of only 7 rounds a minute. 4 HE. This is a terrible weapon. And that's the reason why I generally don't use it. But hey, you don't need to rely on the ship. We got a B5. And if you have a B5, then everything else is just going to disappear. Much to the dismay of all the Legionnaires that were camped out inside the buildings and that were capable of just pushing out a couple of VDV squads, but not the command infantry. Now, the Chongju, spawned in by Freddy, is going to have a very brief life as it encounters the Lafayette. It might return fire, but with a 5% with a 5% accuracy. It actually shot at the Lafayette and the shell landed over there. So these things are definitely not to be relied on in case you want to actually hit something. They have a 5% stabilizer and a 20% accuracy versus the 40% stabilizer plus accuracy / accuracy from the Lafayette. And you're not even paying that much more for Lafayette. You're paying 200, for which you're also getting a lot of good air or anti-air missiles and surface-to-air missiles. Sorry, anti-ship missiles. And of course that gun. Versus the Chongju, which in its current role was pretty useless. And Freddy, maybe as a result of losing the Chongju, has left the game. So now it is pretty much clear up time for Red 4. They just have a couple of Blufor units left. And once again, a B5 sails into view, drops into the more or less the middle of the town, and finishes off another command vehicle. Again, how do you counter this? What do you do if all your infantry gets eliminated early on? I don't really know. The way that Blufor had their infantry moving into town was pretty normal. The way that Red 4 responded with 6 B5s was not really normal. It's not really something you can plan for, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe you could have spread out your vehicles across 2 bridges to limit the, well, the vulnerability of one column. But they didn't just hit this one part. They also hit this one. So even if you had spread it out over 2 particular ridges, or even 3, you'd have been hit regardless. Bringing in more fighters or having somebody on designated fighter duty might have worked. And we actually saw a couple of fighters up from blue. They had the Tomcats. I think at some time I saw an Eagle. And those, well, they were not able to stop the B5s. Once again, the B5s are flying in. At this point, I think it's 3 players using them. I think it was Braugh and... It wasn't Valhalla, it was a Chubb, I think. And now it's also Mr. Vidmar. So it is 3 B5 players operating together. And at this point, it's just, well, explosive fishing, dynamite fishing, I believe you call it. It doesn't really matter what they can or cannot see. Because they can't see anything over here. But they are bound to get a lot of points while hitting this particular area. Because there was some artillery in there. Because, once again, Blufor loses a lot of units. So what Blufor has left? Basically nothing. A scattering of infantry, which are not really going to make it across this bridge anyway. We have some fire support units slash tanks, STRV-103Bs. These were the ones that did get B5'd early on. Survived, and now got repaired. They got an automatic, some scattered command units, even one far outside the town slash command sector. And they got the Lafayette, which Red 4 can pretty safely ignore because nobody cares about the Lafayette, as long as you don't have any operations going on there. Red 4 does have a B5, sorry, a VAP 2013 to worry about. And Red 4 now knows of its existence, because they do have some picket lines. It was detected. A fighter does a gun run on it. And then it's up to the BTR-60 and the T-55 to take it out. And no more flanking from that one lonely VAP 2013. They still have a bit of a presence here. But it remains to be seen how this is going to be useful. It seems to be like the LCMs dropped off these guys and this group. But, well, what do you want with one reconnaissance group in the middle of Red 4 territory? It's not like there's anything that spawns through here, so you can either spot it or alert the rest of your teammates to respond to what sort of threat Red 4 is bringing in. I don't really see the point of having the commander's para over here. Maybe over here would be more useful, because then you get a bit more information about what's going on that road. So, I guess that we're just going to be watching Red 4 clear up whatever happens with the remainder of Blue 4 units. They still have a bunch of B5s. Red 4 is slowly but steadily pushing ground. Although the Monitor Zippos are keeping them at bay a bit. And the NTR that is more or less positioned here in the middle. There was an automatic at some point. They're pretty much getting ignored. Because the B5s just fly in from the side. Over the sector of Delta. And then still drop their very deadly payload. So, 5 or 6 B5s at the start of the game. I'd say it's not a guarantee of getting a win, but it definitely helps. And you can see that one of the guys who was at Braugh sent in the replay, 615 points. Chubb, 400 points. And I think it was... Who was the last guy? Vidmar, 830 points. Also going into B5s. Blufor, to their credit, still has a couple of guys who are not leaving this fight. They're still sticking around. But really, they don't have any kind of hope of defending this sector. Unless they're suddenly going to gain a lot of points. But I don't particularly see that happening. And with the destruction of the Lafayette, that's also a blow to morale on Blue 4. Interesting that Red 4 was able to get a salvo on those AMOS because they didn't move after firing. Anyway, what I wanted to show you with this game was the highlight of what happens if you get hit by a load of B5s. Again, I was not sure if I was watching ICBM with 50 megaton bombs or Wargame. It turned out to be Wargame, in fact. But hot damn, that was destructive. Let's see what the guys actually end up with as far as scores are concerned. Because I'm wondering if they actually lost a lot of units doing those strikes. I don't really believe so. Now, of course, this strike only really works if you have a couple of teammates. It wouldn't really have worked if it had just been Braugh or just Chubb with the B5s. because then you don't have the air superiority that you need. You don't have the seed escorts that you need. So by doing it this way, by having a couple of guys work together and making sure that their air attacks were coordinated, it really, really worked out well. Now, the guy who sent it in, Braugh, had 848 points versus 45 losses. I switched perspective a couple of times, so I don't have any kill/death list. We have Fitmar doing almost 1,000 points positive. Chubb, 500 points positive. It was pretty much a massacre of Blufor units. Anyway, if you have any good ideas on how to counter a squadron, flight, whatever you want to call it, of 6 B5s, let me know down below in the comment section. How would you approach this problem? Let's say you were doing it solo or in a team, that's up to you. Let me know down below in the comment section. How do you deal with an attack like that? Thank you for watching. Hope you guys had a good laugh out of that B5 strike. And I'll see you guys soon for more Wargame.